This annual rivalry full of hatred, full of disgust, full of one-sided dominance by the Iowa Hawkeyes, with a chance for Nebraska to break the streak, to end the cycle, and to cap off year 3 of the Matt Rhule era with a win, kicks off this Friday, this Black Friday, at noon Eastern time. This will be broadcast on CBS. It'll be a lovely 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the freezing point of water, but there won't be any precipitation. It looks like it's going to be partly cloudy. Both 7-4 teams. Iowa, though, with a 5-3 conference record, and Nebraska with a 4-4 conference record. Iowa travels to Nebraska favored by 5.5 points, and the winner of this game will receive the cherished and prized Heroes Trophy. Let's take a look, first things first, at Iowa and the season they've had thus far. So Iowa, standing at 7-4, 5-3, all 4 of their losses have come by 1 score. They've actually come by a combined 15 points. So little under 4 points per game in terms of margin of defeat. That's Iowa's score differential in their 4 losses. Very painful. They did get a 1-score win over Michigan State this past Saturday, which was a very tense game. Another near victory for Michigan State, where the Spartans come up just short. That moves Iowa to 2-4 in close games for the 2025 season. This game against Nebraska, I think, really decides their season. If it's a loss, I think Iowa's season is pretty disappointing, considering all the theoretical improvements and improvements I think that in practice they have made. I think this team is better than it was last season. And with Penn State being down, I don't think if you're Iowa, you're no longer expecting to just get to 6 or 7 wins. With Penn State being down, and with you beating a down Penn State team, albeit by 1, you should be expecting 8 wins, or maybe even with how Gronowski has looked and how the defense improved from where it was last year, maybe expecting even more than that. A win here and then a win in the postseason is a successful season for Kirk Ferentz. A loss here, I think, puts a damper on the season and makes it sort of a down year for Iowa and a disappointing year where they started strong in September and October, but had a very disappointing November. For Nebraska, talk about a disappointing end, potentially, to a pretty strong start, where at one point Nebraska was 5-1. They were favored by nearly 2 scores against Minnesota. They lose by 18. Their only other losses entering the Penn State game were to USC and to Michigan by a touchdown combined. So an average of 3.5 points away from tying those games. Then you add on another point each, and they win both of them. And USC is a top 15 power-rated team that for much of the year is through with the top 10. Michigan is a top 20, top 15 power-rated team. There were moments in both of those games where Nebraska could have won or taken control, and eventually that could have led to a win. But instead, they sit here at 7-4, 4-4 in Big Ten play. No matter what, they've improved their regular season win total from where it was last year. But losing to Penn State by 27 points and losing to Minnesota by 18 points is pretty disheartening. Minnesota's a bad football team. Penn State's good, but with a bad record. And Penn State's not really mentally very tough or the best coach team in the world. They are mentally tougher than they were under Franklin, for sure, especially where Franklin was at this year. But they still have a lot of work to do before becoming a great team and showing that they are still a great program, as they've been historically. The way they handily beat Nebraska is not a program-defining loss for Nebraska. I still think that Matt Rhule is going to bring Nebraska to great places and get them to consistently be in that playoff conversation. But it was certainly a reality check as to how much this team has improved compared to his previous 2 Nebraska teams. Still showing linear improvement, but the trend line is pretty similar. It's a slight improvement every year. This team hasn't taken a big jump from where they were last year, but they have improved, and that's valuable. A win over Iowa, though, with the backup quarterback in TJ Lateef, and then if you beat Iowa, maybe you win the bowl game too. Winning 8 regular season games or 9 games overall, either or, that would be a very impressive year 3 for Nebraska, especially with that context of winning a rivalry game, hoisting that rivalry trophy, putting that in the trophy case. That would be an impactful, possibly career-defining win and season-defining win for Matt Rhule in Nebraska. As while Iowa's not ranked inside of the top 25, I personally am going to treat them like a top 25 team, as they are rated inside the top 25 of FPI and power rated there. For key players and statistics to pay attention to, I want to bring you Iowa's top 10 defense in points allowed per play, allowing 0.253 points per play. Phil Parker has done a phenomenal job improving Iowa's secondary, making sure they're still good at preventing explosive runs, and that they do a good enough job getting to the quarterback on blitzes to force timely turnovers or punts and stall out offenses. Their offense is top 40 in points per play. Part of that special teams touchdowns, and pick sixes actually count there too. But believe me, this Hawkeye offense is better than anything we've seen from Iowa since 2020 or 2019. For Nebraska, the offense has really taken a hit ever since Rhule left with an injury. And hopefully he heals up and he'll be even better next year when he's going to be Nebraska's starting quarterback still. The defense for the Cornhuskers is a very weak and almost pathetic unit when you know how to run the football and when you have a really good offensive line and tough running backs, and having a quarterback that can at least play at a competent level to play off of that only makes matters worse. That's why they're 71st in points allowed per play and well outside the top 25 in ESPN's efficiency for defense. For Iowa, key players to pay attention to: tackles Jennings Dunker and Trevor Locke, and guard Bo Steffens, center Logan Jones. On defense, safety Xavier Nwapka, cornerbacks TJ Hall and Zach Lutmer, and Deshaun Lee. Lutmer, I think, is technically their nickel. You look at Iowa's defensive line: Ethan Herkett, Max Llewellyn, Aaron Graves. Pay attention to them. How does Iowa's secondary, which loves to play man ball, loves to try to get as close to interfering with the passer without committing a pass interference penalty, how do they go up against Isaiah Hunter, Dane Key, and Ja'Cory Barney Jr. for Nebraska? And for Nebraska, I don't think TJ Lateef is a very impactful player. I think if Nebraska wins this game, it's going to have to be through Emmett Johnson, the running back, and then Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter at wide receiver, with Lateef doing just enough to not be a reason why Nebraska loses. But he is not going to be a huge reason by himself without a supporting cast. This channel will make you a college football expert and help you enjoy watching games and make more accurate predictions. So what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment your thoughts, and watch the video all the way through so that you can get the full package. And check the description and pinned comment for more ways to help yourself and this channel. For why Nebraska can win or will win, pay attention to Elijah Judy, their nose tackle, their nose guard. So the nose tackle is who lines up over the center, usually. I'm curious to see how he does, and I imagine it's not going to be very well, but maybe I'm wrong, against one of the best centers in the game, Logan Jones. And then Deshaun Singleton, Sear Wright, Andrew Marshall, some of the Cornhusker defensive backs. How do they perform in this game? I think that for the first time in a minute here, that Iowa actually has the quarterback advantage. Now, bear with me. I know a lot of these statistics actually go TJ Lateef's way, but I've seen Gronowski play in big games. Gronowski's played a tougher schedule. He's played tougher defenses. He has 7 passing touchdowns. I know he has 6 interceptions. That's not very good. But a 56 QBR, a 119 passer rating. Lateef completes 70% of his throws and averages 9.2 yards per pass attempt. A lot of those have been screens or garbage time plays against Akron or Houston Christian or a really bad UCLA defense that Iowa hasn't had to play this year. His QBR is just a 59.4, and his passer rating is a 166.3, and it's falling quickly. Gronowski did much better against Penn State's defense. Much better than Nebraska's. Now, I know the timing of those games is very different, and that's certainly important. But Iowa here has the QB advantage. The numbers, I think, are lying to you a little bit. Just look at the completions versus attempts. We have a much larger sample size on Gronowski and who he is. Latif, we're still trying to wash away some of those inflated statistics against inferior competition, against a UCLA team that may have already quit and or just did not have the horses to keep up with Nebraska's offense when Latif finally was implemented into the game plan. Let's move on to some keys to the game, some areas of focus for both the Cornhuskers and the Hawkeyes. Number one is special teams. Which special teams unit plays at the highest level? Which kicker between Kyle Kunanen and Drew Stevens is more impactful, makes more field goals, is able to be used as a long-range weapon? So if both teams within the final minute of the first and second half, because this has happened in games before, where one team misses a field goal right before half, the other team gets the ball back, and they get to have their opportunity to kick a field goal before the half, and they make it. And that's like a 6-point swing inside of a minute, and that's a pretty big deal. So if that situation occurs between the kickers, who's better suited to make that clutch kick? Between the punters, who's going to have the better game? Archie Wilson or Reese Dakin? Between the returners, I mean, is Caden Weechin going to house one here, even though it's at Nebraska? We'll have to see, but special teams for the first time in a while is pretty equivalent between the Cornhuskers and the Hawkeyes, so that makes it even more exciting to pay attention to and possibly even more of a deciding factor, since we don't know where it's going to go. Turnovers. Who wins the turnover battle? Latif has not thrown an interception yet, but with how much they're going to ask him to throw the football, because Nebraska's offensive line is still in a bit of a pickle, and their defense is a sieve, literally, against teams who can run, and Iowa is one of those teams that can run. Is he going to throw one here? He could. Gronowski's almost thrown an interception in, like, every Big Ten game he's started in. Or it feels like it. I don't have those numbers in front of me. He has thrown some interceptions in Big Ten play. He's also had some games where he's been pretty clean in Big Ten play. But does Nebraska's secondary, one of the better secondaries in the Big Ten, turn away Iowa on some critical downs passing or even force a turnover? There's lines of scrimmage play too, the offensive lines and the defensive lines. Who wins that battle? On paper, Iowa should dominate there, but it is a rivalry. And Nebraska should have been owned last year on the lines of scrimmage, and Nebraska actually won that battle there. They didn't win the game because their special teams unit whiffed, and Dylan Raiola gave up a strip sack, but they actually won the line of scrimmage battle there, even though on paper Iowa should have beaten them up in that game. What about the secondaries? This is the unit Iowa's defense hangs its hat on. It's the unit Nebraska's been forced to hang their hat on defensively too. Which defensive backcourt tackles better? Which covers better? Puts themselves in a position to make a game-winning play, forcing a turnover, housing a pick six? Who reads the defense better? Which safeties are better able to deceive their opposing quarterback? And finally, this is a specific point to Nebraska because Iowa has dominated this rivalry dating back to the 2010s. What is Nebraska's mentality here? Iowa has a healthy quarterback. I know they're coming off a few painful losses, but they also didn't put themselves in a position preseason to be a playoff or bust team. That's not Kirk Ferentz. Iowa is fighting for pride. I know what Iowa's identity is. I do not know what Nebraska's identity is. I don't know how engaged they are with the season because of the QB injury and because that loss was so dejecting and demoralizing and was really an awful loss. And also the fact that they don't have the lines of scrimmage that Matt Rhule wants. And they said preseason they were searching for the playoffs. They were eliminated from that a few weeks ago, and they're pretty much eliminated from being a top 25 team now after that loss to Penn State. And for Nebraska, with the QB injury and some things that just really need to be fixed, I can see them kind of saying, hey, let's get to the bowl game, play some of our younger guys. Our roster's pretty young. Let's get those additional practices and really zone in on what should be a strong 2026 campaign. So Nebraska's mentality is a really important key and factor in this game because it's a bit of an unknown. For the matchups here, I like Nebraska's passing defense against Iowa's passing offense. I actually see Nebraska holding Iowa to under 100 yards passing, which is usually pretty hard to do because it's easier for passing offenses to scale as long as they're not awful, and Iowa's is no longer awful. It's bad, but it's not awful. The problem for the Cornhuskers is I like Iowa in pretty much every other position, in every other matchup. I think their rushing offense and defense will dominate Nebraska's, and I think their pass defense will keep Nebraska's on lockdown. I also believe that Kirk Ferentz is a better game day coach and manager than Rhule, and to this point, Iowa's the more talented team. Like, once you factor in development, Iowa fans have criticized me for saying before that Nebraska's always been more talented. When I say that, I mean by a high school recruiting sense. Usually that translates to, in actuality, being more talented. It is not in this rivalry. It's usually translated the opposite way, where Nebraska recruits better, but Iowa develops way better. And that's the case again this year. I think Iowa's the better team. Iowa's favored to win. And I'm picking Iowa to not just win, but I think they'll cover. And I believe they'll win by 7 to 10 points. I do not know exactly where this Nebraska team is at. And that's not even from a mental angle. It's also from an angle where I really, how do I put this? I believe that they're going to play hard and they're going to come out and they're going to want this thing. And it'll be an emotional game. It'll be a rivalry game, as always. But I think that Iowa here has a more level-headed and stable roster and identity and also style of play. And what I like Iowa to do here is to really come out, and after the first quarter, they will just establish total control. And it will already be over. It won't be a blowout. I've picked that to happen before and was almost slapped in the face by it. This game is traditionally very close and competitive, like other great rivalries. Think about the game, think about the Iron Bowl. It's traditionally very close, especially when there's either a talent match in a sense where, yes, Iowa develops better, but Nebraska recruits better. That's held over, or where there's competent coaching on both ends, and Nebraska has competent coaching. So this will be a close game, but it will be close by the scoreboard. And I think Iowa will always lead by 1 to 2 scores here in the second half, and if not maybe second quarter moving forward. They're better at most positions. They have the better players. They have the deeper roster. They have the better game day coach. And if Nebraska wins, would I be all that surprised? No, because it's going to be a close game by the scoreboard. And Iowa has shown that offensively they can still have some screw-ups. Nebraska's special teams are great. So there is that chance that they could win the special teams battle. And at that point, I think really anything can happen. But I'm confident that Iowa's going to win. If Nebraska ends up winning or pulling this off, it'd be a huge win for Matt Rhule. And I wouldn't be shocked or surprised that it would happen, but I'm not picking that to happen, if that makes sense. Where on my confidence meter, I'm probably 8, 9, or even 10 out of 10 confident that Iowa's going to win. But because of the style Iowa plays, I won't be shocked at all if Nebraska wins. I'd be very impressed, don't get me wrong. Maybe a part of me would be like, oh, well, that's cool, or I didn't expect that. But it'd be more of the, oh, I was wrong surprise, not, whoa, what did I miss? If you know what I mean. So Iowa's going to win. I believe they're going to cover with that rushing offense. I think they'll run for 200. They could even run for 300 yards. It'll be somewhere in that range. They'll pass for under 100. Nebraska will pass for 150. I think Emmett Johnson will break off a long run or two, so they'll run for 100 to 150 when you take out the sacks. But Iowa will be in control for the entire 60 minutes of this game. Thank you for watching. It's my mission on College Football with Sam to make you the most informed, knowledgeable, and entertained fan as possible. We aren't perfect, but we hit the nail on the head more often than we hit our thumb with the hammer. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment, and if you're here, you've probably already watched the whole video. So thank you for doing those things.